Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest Advantage Futures and Option City webinar series. We're live here from Chicago, Illinois, Option City headquarters. My name is Patrick Gardner, and I'm here with Ambaj Sharma from Advantage Futures. Hello, and thank you for joining us this morning. And as everyone knows, the topic they can see right here is algo trading. It's a topic growing in relevance to both traders and something that technology providers and partners like Option City and Advantage Futures have some experience in. And for today's webinar, it'll be mostly an introduction to the topic, but of course, afterwards we'll be available for any deeper questions, and we can also incorporate that into future webinars. But it will be an introductory webinar for today's purpose, but we'll give you a look at some of the technical setup on the Advantage side, as well as some of the software solutions with Option City and Option City Freeway. I think most people are probably familiar with both of our firms, but we'll give you some brief background for those that aren't. Option City is a 5-year-old software firm, and we've offered a professional options auto execution and market making system called Option City Metro the last 5 years. But in the last 6 months, we've come into the multi-asset class algorithmic trading space with the launch of a new product called Freeway that we'll see some of later. And it's important to note that with Option City and Advantage Futures, both cater our services to multi-asset classes, so you can trade futures and stock through Option City as well as Advantage Futures for your technical and clearing needs, of course. And now I'll pass things over to Ambaj. She'll give you some background on Advantage Futures, and we'll start to define and elaborate on what an algo means or what algo trading is for the purpose of this webinar. And then he'll throw things back to me, and I'll show you a little bit of our product Freeway and how we solve some common issues or challenges in the algo trading space.
Thank you for the great introduction.
No problem.
Advantage Futures is one of the highest volume clearing firms in the industry. We've been around since 2003, and to this date, we've cleared well over 2 billion contracts and growing strong. We had an early emphasis in technology and servicing high-frequency, low-latency traders. We have a very responsive risk management team that can, change limits or do any type of risk analysis in minutes or hours, whatever, depending on the task ahead of them. We have a very customizable back office operation where we can give customized post-trade files, end-of-day files, position files, etc. Advantage Futures remains the consummate clearing firm for its diverse and growing client base. Skilled, dedicated personnel provide the most comprehensive, customized technology solutions for individuals or prop shops that may need any type of expertise in terms of technology, risk management, operations, any of those. What is algo trading? This is a basic definition we've gotten off of Google in the past. It says that it's the use of computer programs for generating trading orders in financial markets. Computer-generated buy or sell signals can be automatically or manually entered into the market. Automated trades are often, but not exclusively, high-frequency trades. Many automated trades are generated through the use of algorithms based on timing, price, and quantity of the order. So that's the definition that you can probably find on the internet. In our shop, we almost refer to it, our common word for it, we refer to it as a black box. Kind of don't know what's going on inside. You don't know if the orders are being automated. And even a black box is a big misnomer because sometimes, black boxes are less of a black box than you can imagine because they're very simple. They're just doing one single task. We just label it as a black box because when you have multiples of them, if you have 20 different clients that are doing their own thing, we just refer to it as a black box because it's hard to identify what they're really doing. Why use algo trading? Definitely gives you the ability to identify a lot of different markets and to react to a lot of different markets a lot more efficiently than the human could. It gives you the ability to track more markets, global markets. You're not limited to being on the floor. You could be upstairs in an office and using Option City to do ICE versus NYMEX, or ICE versus ICE currencies versus the currencies of the CME. It can utilize and do calculations far beyond what the human mind can do, even though there's a lot of really smart people out there. I know that, but it's still, and it's also very it takes emotions out of picture. If you're doing automated algo style trading, you don't have to worry about having a bad night and putting a bad trade on the next day.
Sure. I think one of the definitions we use internally, or one of the things we said, is the automation of the human thought process, and then
taking the mistakes out of the picture, right?
Right, the thought process in the code, and if the code is good, then it's the human error can be taken out of it, or at least found immediately.
And that's the other reason we refer to it as a black box, because I think by all means, I mean, you can have a great system, you can come turn it on, but when variables are introduced in the marketplace, I think there's still a trader behind the black box that reacts to it. You can't just have a bunch of developers write a black box and expect it to be successful. You still need the mind of the trader. It's still very important, I believe. Who should consider automated trading? We believe most traders should in some way, whether you're point and click trading, you can still automate some things that can automate your calculations. You don't have to automate order entry. You could automate, different ratios that are coming in for you, so you're not doing them in your head. Most banks out there, institutions, hedge funds, money managers, we know all those guys are using automation. We deal with them on a daily basis. We know point and click traders that are point and click trading, but they're using automation in some form in terms of pulling data in from, a data vendor and, putting their orders into some kind of database, and which helps them determine what they should point and click on next, making decisions, helping them make decisions. Obviously, automation and Graybox, API certified people are definitely using automation, which is the reason they're doing all that. And ultimately, direct market access, we've seen, big soaring. We'll show a slide later that shows what we see in terms of direct market access. Here's just a brief list of markets that Advantage Futures has connectivity to, and I think OptionsCity has pretty much written to most of these exchanges.
This is a very close overlay, nearly identical to ours.
And we provide connectivity to these. We have the whole CME group complex at 350 East Cermak currently. Obviously, DC3 is going to be going live. DC3 is the new data center that's in Aurora for the CME. That's been the big buzzword recently here. That's been the go live date for that's going to be January 29th, and I believe that's going to introduce a lot more variables for the automated trades that have been functioning so properly right now. We don't know, if you're ICE trader that's spreading between ICE and NYMEX, where do you keep your server? Do you keep it at 350, or do you move it to Aurora? It depends on what leg is more important to you. We have a feel, a lot of our clients, the feedback we're getting is they're going to keep they're going to add a new set of boxes at DC3, and they're going to keep what they have in production, their moneymaker, the way it is. They're not going to change anything on it, and then determine over a slow migration period what's better for them. And it may be that they may keep servers at both locations, because one day a trade or a logic may function and be profitable at one location, and then another week or another day could function and be profitable at the other location at DC3, and you might have to keep servers at both locations. We don't know. These are things that we're going to find out here very soon, is how everything plays out. Along with CME Group, we have access to Life here in Chicago. We have access to Life in Frankfurt. We have a data center in Frankfurt for high-frequency Eurex trader. Frankfurt's currently the fastest location to trade Life and Eurex products. You can get a Life Cross Connect in Frankfurt, but you cannot get a Eurex Cross Connect in London, which is why Frankfurt's the closest place to do both markets if you're doing both. We have access to all the ICE US, ICE Europe products. We have connectivity right at 350 Cermak, where ICE matches their trades. We have access to Kansas City, Minneapolis, DC, London Clearinghouse, the Montreal Exchange, Options Clearing Corp, CBOE. CFEs, we've seen a big boost in that recently. We've seen a lot of guys doing VIX products with the volatility in the marketplace.
I think some of the people on the webinar call today might be familiar with the series of VIX webinars we've been doing in conjunction with the CBOE about the record volume, both futures and options they've gone through in the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, being a technology person, I wasn't really up to speed with all the products, and just 2 years ago, I learned about the VIX when the whole market debacle happened, and everyone started trading the VIX, and it's it's worked out well so far. Everything looks good. Next slide we're on to is how to get started with automated trading. I think ultimately, like I mentioned before, a trader is important, a trader mind, a trader logic, the ability to decide and execute trades and to implement trades. The black box is not going to do any of that for you, or OptionCity is not going to provide any of that for you. You still need a trader to come up with that trade logic. Ultimately, you have to pick a appropriate futures broker for you if you're technology sensitive or not technology sensitive. It depends on what you're up to, but ultimately, you want to pick a provider that's partnered with the software that you want to use, like ourselves and OptionsCity here. We've been.
I think there's a correct answer to these 2 bullet points in the middle.
I think it starts with
at the bottom.
It starts with an A, I think.
All right.
I don't want to sit here and tell advantage, but I think we can pretty much handle anything in this. We've been working with OptionCity when there was, I think, 4 of you guys at OptionCity, and we've built a great working relationship.
Last 5 years.
And we're onboarding clients almost on a daily basis here, and we're along with OptionCity's great software and our great ability to execute it and implement it. I think we have a great partnership here in what we do. Here's the chart I was talking about earlier. This is just algo trading in the last 5 years that we've seen, or last 10 years. 2011 is missing on here. We'll add it sometime later. And, it's just, I'd like to see what 2011 looks like. I think it's definitely higher than 150. I think we're closer to 200 right now. But if you look at in 2005, I can single-handedly remember I had one client that was doing direct market access. And that's probably represents 1 down there. And then in 2006, there was like 2 guys. In 2007, it might have been like 4 or 5. And then in 2008, we're like, wow, we have double digits. This guy's doing direct market access. In 2009, it just multiplied. It just went nuts. In 2010, the same way. We saw a little bit of drop. Markets weren't doing this good. I think it was harder. There's no motion, no mobility in the market, no volatility. So it was hard for, doing automating and algo trading. It gets expensive in the sense of implementing it. It costs money to get service. It costs money for hosting, power, cooling. So if volatility's not there and the volume's not there, it's hard for guys to justify. But I think, as these markets turn around and volatility comes back and interest rate starts moving around, I think this is going to soar. This is just the beginning here.
Certainly. Every kind of statistic I've seen along the same, it follows the same general trend, accelerating growth in the space. And obviously, you guys are at the forefront. So,
and I think we're
microcosm of your customers doing this.
I think this chart makes it look like it's, the trend has been up very well, but I think it's still, if you were to take a meter stick, I think we're 1 meter, we're on a 100-meter stick of where we're going to be in the next 10 years. I mean, this is just 5 years of the chart. I think if you go pre-2005, you go to like when Advantage started in 2002, we didn't have a single guy. Everyone was pointing and clicking and trading or trading on the floor. And, we saw the migration from the floor to electronic, and then from electronic to, one guy trading electronically, one market, to guys expanding their horizons, trading electronically throughout the world, sitting at one location. Where before, a guy would be in a bond pit and all he could trade is the bond. That's all he could see. And once they transitioned to move upstairs, like, wait, I can trade bond and I can trade the Euro stock, and I can trade the Euribor in London and sit in one location. It's just for the global markets, it's just a great thing to do this electronically.
So you still think it's the tip of the iceberg?
I think
it might just be.
I think
still edge there.
I think the marketplace and the housing bust and the interest rate lockdown has kind of hurt it drastically. And I think it's still done great for what the situation we've been dealt and the cards we've been dealt. But I think once things move around and interest rates start playing around, and again, I mean, a lot of automated trading is interest rate products. And if you're not moving interest rates, there's no volatility.
Sure.
In the current. I'll hand it back over to you. So,
all right, great.
Yeah,
I'm now going to talk about OptionCity and our Algo product Freeway, and how we positioned it to eliminate and minimize some of the common challenges associated with algo trading, be it time to production, coding and testing, the whole process, the opportunity and cost associated with building this. And I'll show you this and some things we do on our Freeway product to address these. And after I'm done, I'll throw things back to Amash again. I'll tell you about advantages solutions for issues more related to speed, proper network and connectivity setup, maintenance costs, sort of thing that's more advantages, non-biased expertise. When I look at this, we'll begin with the speed. So obviously this is a very important aspect of any sort of automation. Most algo strategies, speed is important, and be crucial to others. Freeway is built to respond to market conditions and variables, and only those variables that you have defined in your logic. And so there's no polling going on where your algo is constantly asking for an update. And the idea is that it's going to respond and execute in microseconds. And of course, we'll get more into the speed and most things that I touch on in this slide.
So you're basically you're not only fast, you're also very efficient. The way you're handling the data that's coming into your server and the way you're executing, you're being efficient about it.
We're
always looking for data that you need instead of getting everything that's
Correct, exactly. We don't have any polling logic. It's built lightweight on the existing infrastructure that we'll discuss that we've built for the Option City Metro and that set of APIs. There's as far as minimal code required, I haven't mentioned it yet. The Freeway code is written in Java, and it also comes with an Eclipse plugin so you can upload jobs directly to a Freeway production or test server. All Freeway customers get access to a simulated exchange that we've built, and that's another way. So we talked about how we efficient code and minimize that from a speed execution of the exchange. Also, a big important thing that we want to touch on is the life cycle of an algorithm and algo trading, and how it's not only the speed to the market and execution, but also the speed of development and ease of coding and so on to make your strategy still relevant, as well as not only making it relevant, but also making it cost effective as far as from coding it and spending time and resources internally at your firm. As far as the dashboard, you get a customizable interface, and we'll show you some screenshots here in a second. Our playback and simulation features allows you to record market data that you can then play back your algos through. We'll show you this in detail as well.
Very important.
This is important nowadays. This is something as we've shown this to people and our customers. This is one of the things that they're most impressed.
And coming from the outside world, where outside of the Option City world, I see a lot of products out there, and the question always comes, how do I take this to market? How do I test it before I take it to market? It's a challenge guys have, so I think it's a great thing you guys are offering that.
Yeah, it's been working out
in simulation, and you're not offloading that to the client to figure out how to test it out in simulation. You're offering the whole. It's a freeway.
Yeah, it's a freeway. We give you a lane on the freeway of our simulation exchange. As far as integration, we talked about our Metro product. So there is a handful of GUI screens that all are incorporated, whether it's for order management, trade logic. They're also redundant in Freeway, but you can see them in your existing Metro if you're using Metro to trade options or futures. You can see the same screens, as well as the entire risk is incorporated. So what you do in one platform can be incorporated in the other into a Freeway algo, overall position hedging, this sort of thing.
So you're not rewriting code over and over, you're just porting it over from the different resources.
Correct. And we'll talk about the infrastructure in just a second and how that kind of overlays. We'll also discuss a little bit more later the Algo Store and some of the out-of-the-box algos that developers get with sample code, so that they have kind of something to look at and use as a rule of thumb as they get started. And also, we have this idea of it being a place where developers can build an algo, upload it to the store for distribution. So far, I've mentioned a couple times the infrastructure and the architecture, or the plumbing, if you will. Freeway traders not only have integrated risk that we just talked about, but firms also don't have to spend the time and resources to reinvent the wheel for commoditized things like data handlers, order routers, exchange connections, etc. Again, that takes development time, development resources, and you just don't have to do it. Additionally, the set of APIs that you're exposed as a Freeway developer are already in place and are proven in the market over the last 5 years. An example would be it takes just a few lines of code in a Freeway algo to call on an option theoretical value that you're designing a strategy around. Whereas a firm starting from scratch would have to code an options pricing model, then dynamically adjust different variables for how you want to change your theo or change your volatility, and you'd have to come up with that whole set of variables to manipulate. This is the kind of work that takes months to do, maybe longer, that we can now do in days, and that's one of the main things that we offer to a firm looking to get into algo trading. Now, imagine a firm did this. They did build their own pricing model. Of course, firms that do have price models can incorporate them. But let's say you built a Whaley model with quadratic skew inputs for trading ag options. Now that group leaves the firm, or they don't make money, they leave. Now all of a sudden you've done all that development work for no reason that we've already done, and you've sunk all that money into it. Another example would be they don't want to trade ag options at the CME anymore. They want to switch to the ICE. Now they have to connect to a different exchange. Again, you're starting all over from scratch. You want to switch to a different product. If you want to go to Eurodollars, now you need to code another binomial or CEV pricing model, and then how to adjust with boundaries, those inputs. So that's something that we've already done, something we already do well, and developers have found, saving their time and working smarter and not just building redundancies, and managers are saving capital, just not developing redundancies again.
Why reinvent the wheel, huh?
Yes,
the wheel's already been built.
Exactly, and it's a good wheel, which is further the
that's
metaphor.
the feedback we're getting. So,
and yeah, and just in this slide, you see a list of just some of the exchanges that we have direct market access to. Some of what's the advantage. One thing I'd like to notice: we connect with a lot of exchanges that will also be look forward to an announcement, series of announcements in Q1 next year from OptionsCity about more direct market access as well. So as we talk about the algo life cycle, every strategy has a shelf life, and with the movement toward algo trading, traders need to keep up with the quickly evolving competitive landscape. And going from one phase to the next here can be not only critical to trading success, but again, also to time and overhead resources. So as we talk about the conception, Ambach mentioned earlier, it is the trader's responsibility to use their own alpha or their own knowledge and intuition to come up with a strategy, but we do give you the tools that we have already available there. And now as we go into building and testing, it's something we'll talk about right now. And the idea is that stuff we're going from what would take 1 month, maybe for 1 day in Freeway. It's a very crude conversion, but that's something we'll discuss, and then the importance of how we actually do this. So what I'm showing you right now is the Freeway OnRamp. It's the control console for starting and stopping what we define as algo jobs, as you hear me saying it throughout the rest of the presentation. And you can see my different algo jobs that I've uploaded to this Freeway screenshot on the left-hand side. I've organized them for trading and reporting. You can see their names and descriptions. So not all of these jobs are for necessarily strategy and execution. Some can be for risk, market data recording for future playback, safety jobs. And there's also the concept of job signaling, where one job can signal another to start or stop, and even dependencies where I'm not able to start this job unless a certain other job is running. Maybe a options execution job can't start running unless a proper auto hedging job is turned on for it and running as well. And you can see the ones I'm running are denoted by the green light. This screen can also be expanded to show you live metrics. So Freeway allows you to view real-time execution times of your algos in microseconds as you go, and you can see that expanded set of information over there. And what I'm going to talk about next, and touching back to the algo lifecycle and the speed of development, here's my configuration that I can open up from this window. For example, if I click on here, I'm opening up my futures auto spreading job. So I want to, have a future spreader, and I've already had one built in here. And first thing I can do is I can select whatever futures contracts I want to look at for each leg of the spread. And then I have this one spreader built, but I can select different instruments and have different instances of it running at one time. So the idea is I don't have to build multiple auto spreaders to do essentially the same thing for different products. I can also have variables defined in here that I can adjust as well as a trader. None of this involves actually going into the code itself. It's completely adjustable by a trader from this console terminal. So in reality, an idea might be I can have this three-legged auto spreader for futures that I built that's designed for the crush spread, but I can just go in and change the product, change the ratio, and all of a sudden I can trade, a crack spread, something like that. If you just want to get
$0 spread.
Exactly. Pretty much anything that you can put your mind to, and then obviously we'll go into testing and how it can evolve from there future. But again, this is just time saving of reinventing and going through and coding each individual thing from the start. We've mentioned that the testing a couple times. This is in the system status window on the console, and it allows a Freeway user to see what jobs are running, how many events of different types that the jobs are describing to, whether it be like a bid-ask event, a book depth event, a number of instruments, etc. And on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that I can select a file from my market recording job that I want to run the algos through for testing. So you see this says today and then a date November. And what I can do is I can test it, run my algos through there, check performance to see is it doing what I want it to. You know, you have all sorts of detailed logging. Maybe is it buying or selling when it should, when I wanted it to. Not only can you do that, but you can also change the variables and configure that we just set up, run them through the same recorded market data and see how the performance differs. Does the variable you adjusted, improve the performance? Did it then accomplish what you wanted it to even better? And it's sort of immediate feedback as opposed to going back to a developer, changing the code. Then we'll test it through. Maybe it'll be a different day, different type trading day, whether busy or slower, and it won't even be relevant anymore. So it gives you that control variable with immediate feedback. And you can also stress test not only the viability of your algo, but in terms of kind of how strong the code is itself, in terms by the way of pumping in market data or accelerating the market data into your algo. So you can see the scroller on the bottom that is at 1 time right now is regular speed. I can put that up to 4 times or full speed to really see what my algos can handle as I pump market data as fast as possible.
So you check
into the system.
You can backtest peak conditions, basically, is what you're saying, like peak market conditions.
Yeah, and you can also backtest the peak condition and then even accelerate that peak condition.
Flash crash, I mean, like
that would be, yeah, you could probably simulate something like that.
You know,
here.
Your logic can do flash crash.
Exactly. Even specific instances, what happens on an announcement, what happens when there's we recorded the future swept in one of our legs. How do we react to it? And then you can quickly change a variable, readjust, and then you kind of know as a human, this is the way we need to code into some of these things happening. And next I'll show you our visualization engine. So there is some human interaction to the black box, sort of grading it up a little bit if it's important for that trader. So what we give you is this visualization engine, and you can create charts, panels to show whatever you want to look at. It's important to algo traders because they haven't all this information going on in a black box or auto executing. There needs to be something that lets you know what you're looking at throughout the day. You don't want to turn it on and come back and see if you're up or down. So there's certain things that you want to monitor, and you can define whatever it is you want to monitor and look at. You can design a probe in your actual code and then graph it. I have some line graphs and tree maps up in here for different things. But the idea is that you're not kind of confined to a standard set of protocols or things to look at.
This is kind of like I can't start looking at code, right? It's a nice visual display versus having to sit there and look at code all day.
That's exactly the idea. Some of these times, if I was doing a correlation trade, I can see the convergence when something happened. Then you could, replay it through some of your logs, things like this. There's some things that you're going to need to react to that you see happening as a trader. Maybe the algorithm is behaving as you thought it was. Maybe it's a unique circumstance. You can actually interact with it. If you see the panel I have on the top left, you can create a button that, upon a click of it, will change a variable as the algo is running live. The examples I have there are changing a spread price or just stop trading altogether. But so there is that intuition meets the actual black box itself.
And I'm assuming a lot of this is customizable to the way you want it to look in terms of colors.
Yes, everything. This is one screenshot dashboard I built. Everything is completely, it's docking. I can drag these in and out, zoom. The whole kind of the idea is that it's a visualization engine for you to build it yourself based on whatever it is that's actually important to you. And the last thing before I kick things back over to Ambaj is, I mentioned earlier, our Algo Store as an app store where you can, a programmer can upload a trading strategy into Freeway and distribute it to others for sale. It's also a way that we distribute some of our sample jobs that we've built. And we do give sample jobs that we've made. You can see some of the examples of an auto spreader, some portfolio hedging things that we've built that we can distribute. Not only see the code, but have something to build off of. And early feedback is that just other kind of providers don't really offer that sort of thing.
No, I didn't
And
actually
so
know about this. It's
very
very
hands-on.
It's very cool in the sense that if someone's out there looking for a specific thing, someone could actually upload it and sell it.
Exactly.
Buyer and seller, you can almost create like an app store that Apple has.
Yeah,
right?
and I've looked through the registrants for this webinar, and I know there's a lot of Java programmers and programming people logged into this, and certainly feel free to get in touch with us and to find out more about this. It's something we're excited about. I'll kick things back over to Ambash, who I've been focused on the software aspect. He can talk more about the network and connectivity and maintenance costs of technology.
Oh, how do I go back on that?
Scroll the mouse wheel forward.
There we go. So yeah, I mean, I think the software is fantastic. It's very cool. So, like, I've never seen the insights of what we have many OptionsCity servers. This is the first time I've seen what a dashboard looks like, because I don't get involved in the front end or the GUI part of it or how it works. We just care about the whole back end piece. And your software is only as good as the highway that or the freeway that your freeway is only as good as the highway that we provide it, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's the motif straight.
We can come, that's where Advantage can come in, and we can help you determine what type of hardware requirements you have depending on what you're doing, what your connectivity requirements are. Will you be co-locating servers or not? And ultimately, every OptionCity client we have right now is co-locating a server. So instead of me going into details about hardware and boring stuff, I'm just going to kind of talk about, in the past year, some of the things I've experienced with a couple of our OptionCity users. So we have an OptionCity user based out of New York, trading some ICE stuff, and he co-located in our data center. We got him a Dell R610 with a X5690 processor chip on it, dual 6-core 3.48 processor chip. Started trading ICE, he's doing well, and he's trading. Then he added NYMEX to it, and he started match coding and became heavily involved in the options market making. And the server just couldn't handle it anymore. He was having issues. So I worked with your OptionCity guys here on the technology side. We came up with a solution, and we told him, hey, maybe we need to upgrade. So the 5690, 6 cores, and your software is multi-threaded, so we know it can use more cores. So we upgraded to a R710, which has a 4-processor chipset, and the processors they have are like the E7 chips that are 10 cores, right? So we got, okay. So we got him a R710, and we put in, we started with 2 processors in there. We bumped up the RAM. He had 24 gigs of RAM before, which is what your requirements are, minimum requirements. We bumped them up to 144 gigs of RAM. We put 2 E7s in there. He's like, it's still, it's definitely much better, but then a number came out and he lost a whole bunch of money, and we came back and learned that it still wasn't enough processing. The beauty of the R710 is that you can it has a 4-proc chipset, so you can put 4 processors. So we have 4-hour response time on this stuff. We ordered the processors, we got it in the same day. The next day number came out and said it was fantastic. So that takes me to yesterday. I was out with a client who's going to be taking your software. We know about him. We talked about him earlier today. And, right off the bat, I told him the story of what we experienced 6 months ago with this client. He's like, I don't want to, I told him, it's one trade for you to get the better, fully, we showed him the R610, which was about $8,000. And then the R710 fully loaded with 4 processor chips was almost, I think it was like $23,000 that ended up costing him. And when we were deciding which one we should get, I told him, I'm like, it's one trade for you, and you can make that money back, and you can pay for the server. And he told me the way he looked at it, he's like, well, to me, it's like one bad trade, and I lose that money, and I don't want to be in that position, so let's go with the best thing possible. And we ended up ordering, a $23,000 server for him. So, that basically tells you that you are definitely, using a lot of the resources that your software is so powerful that you use the resources that we're given it. It's one of the most expensive servers we have in our data center right now. Is a $23,000 server. So definitely your software is doing something right to utilize all those resources and all those cores that we're throwing at it and all the RAM that we're throwing at it.
And I don't understand a lot of the specific server names that you're referring to, but we do have some fact checkers on the call here to confirm everything.
Sure.
Please
do. Please do. Please do, by all means. So, that was the little tidbit I wanted to throw in there for real time. I think it's always better to throw in a real-time story that someone can relate to, a trader out there can relate to, as opposed to me sitting there rambling off just X5690 and E7s. That wouldn't be as fun, So, the next thing is, how do you build your data center? And it's obviously work in progress. We're learning every day that we go. We started this concept, in 2003 when we were building data centers in our office. We were in the CME building on the 20th floor, and we had an unbelievable data center there, and we had CME lines coming in there, and the trend has changed, and now everything's at 350, and now the question is DC3, and out of the 200 servers we have, we don't know how many of those guys are going to want it. We have a rough idea of the serious clients that are definitely going to have to be there, that are very high frequency and speed sensitive, but there's a lot of gray area of guys that don't know if they should be there or not, and that's the challenge that we're going to have, even in terms of connectivity. When you're at Aurora, you have an option of, and this is something that we haven't gotten together. We're going to have to get it sooner than later. They offer a 1 gig G-Link and they offer a 10 gig G-Link, and we went with the 10 gig G-Link, but we're going to offer our Option City clients whether they can link into our switches at 1 gig or they can link it at 10 gig, and obviously at 10 gig, you're never going to get that bandwidth from the G-Link, but you're serializing packets 10 times faster. So, we have to get into talking those discussions now, and it's,
that's the kind of
the way. That's
consultation we do together, and you do with, our mutual clients, the cost of the maintenance versus, reaping the benefits of.
So let's put it this way, like we have all these Option City servers in our data center, they all have 1 gig NIC cards. When I tell my clients that, hey, you can get 10 gig options now, they're going to tell me what NIC cards I put in. That's something you and I are going to have to, your team and my team is going to have to work together on, come up with. Do we want solar flares? Do we want Americoms? Or do we want, any other thing, Voltron, whatever? There's a lot of 10 gig network card makers, and that's where we have to come up and decide what we want to recommend, and this is where a relationship comes in handy. And then that way the client, the end user, doesn't have to worry about this. We can figure all this out.
For an end user, someone like me that is understanding,
or any one of my
5%
clients,
of what
any handful of my clients that I know are going to move to DC3, they're going to move to Aurora, and I'm going to offer them 10 gig, and then we're going to come back and figure out, okay, what kind of network cards, and that's the stuff we're going to have to figure out here. So we definitely have our work cut out ahead of us. Building data centers is kind of standard now. It's an industry standard. I think there's not much you can do to, obviously there's a good way of doing it and there's a cheap way of doing it. I think in this arena, anyone that's competing is doing it the efficient way and the most fastest way possible. But there's other variables that come into play. Do you want 10 gig? Do you want 1 gig? Where do you want to put your server? The data centers are there. There's one in Aurora. There's one in 350. That's not the question anymore. If you want to co-locate a data center, the question is which data center do you want to co-locate it?
If you're not interested in co-location or proximity location, then it's probably not.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. You're not
worth it for you to be entered into this space.
And that was
you can't enter into this space without that.
I don't have any Option City clients that's not co-locating with me. So it obviously demands that. Option City demands that, and the traders that are using Option City, whatever their trade logic is or their trade model is, it's demanding that. I mean, I have the client in New York, the server sits here, and we have an external NAT over the internet where there's data going to him to New York, but all the processing is happening locally here. If processing was happening in New York, I think you'd have to be retired or would have to be trading. So the question is not, do you want to be in the data center? It's which one do you want to be in, and how do you want to be? Now, it's not just everyone is in the data center and you get 1 gig. Now the question is, do you want 10 gig? And obviously 10 gig comes at a cost. These network cards are just $1,000 alone. The G-Bigs that go inside the network cards are $1,000. So, you have to pay a premium to be at 10 gig.
So, and that's, the kind of thing that we work with, our mutual people on. Some of the challenges going forward with the DC3. That's the end of the presentation as we prepared it. We've been keeping track of some of the questions that have been asked. So far, there's quite a variety of them. What we'll do, instead of taking the time to cherry pick a few, we'll be sure to give specific answers to anyone that's asked a question. Throughout the time, you can see our contact information here. Get a hold of us with any questions about Option City, Advantage Futures, or even the kind of solution for the two of them combined. And we'd be more than happy to talk to anyone further. I know we might see a lot of you later tonight at the Advantage Christmas party. We're looking forward to that as well. Ambaj, do you have anything else to add before we sign out here?
I just want to thank everyone for them taking the time to sit here and listen to us, and hope to see a lot of you at the party tonight.
All right, sounds good. We'll sign out on that, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.